The cold floor beneath them, cold metal floor, bit into Zira's knees as she sat inside the cramped cage. Her arms were tightly wrapped around her little sister Nali, who had stopped crying an hour ago, because she was calm, but because she had no energy left. Their thin clothes were torn, their skin bruised, and their eyes heavy with fear. The cargo bay of the slave transport ship smelled of rust, oil, and hopelessness. Other cages were lined up beside them, filled with creatures from different planets. No one spoke. Everyone knew what was coming. They were to be sold. Zira was only 10, but she had learned quickly how cruel the galaxy could be. She had seen her parents taken by force, her village burned. Soldiers laughed while people screamed. She had no words to comfort her sister. All she could do now was hold her close and whisper lies that maybe someone good still existed out there. Suddenly, the ship's door opened with a loud hiss. Harsh white light flooded in. A group of buyers entered, aliens in rich robes and armored suits. They walked slowly down the row of cages, stopping at each one, pointing, bargaining. Numbers were spoken. Lives were weighed by credits. A tall, thick-skinned trader tapped their cage with a rod. "This one," he grunted. 2 for the price of 1. Older sister, still strong. Younger one might survive. Zira clenched her jaw. Nali hid her face in Zira's chest. A buyer stepped forward, a creature with red scales and gold chains around its neck. It smiled with sharp teeth. It nodded to the trader and reached for the cage. Then something unexpected happened. A voice cut through the air. "Stop." Everyone turned. A human stood near the loading ramp, his hands at his sides, his voice calm but cold. He wore a long brown coat and a simple black shirt. His hair was messy, and there was a scar just below his left eye. No one had noticed him before. "What do you want, human?" The trader barked. The man stepped forward slowly. His boots echoed on the metal floor. His eyes didn't look at the trader. They locked onto Zira's. He saw her fear, her bruises, her defiance. "I want those too," he said, pointing to the sisters. The trader laughed. "You got money." The man pulled out a small pouch and tossed it to the floor. It landed with a heavy thud. The trader opened it. His eyes widened. Gold chips. More than the girls were worth. The red-scaled buyer hissed, annoyed. "You're interfering. Walk away," the human said without raising his voice. There was a long silence. Then, with a wave of the trader's hand, the cage opened. Zira didn't move. She thought it was a trick. The man crouched down, staying just outside the cage. "Come," he said gently. "You're free now," Nali whimpered, pulling closer to her sister. Zira didn't trust him. No one had ever helped them, but something in his voice. It wasn't fake. It wasn't soft, either. It was firm, steady, real. Slowly, she helped Nali up. Both of them walked barefoot across the cold floor, toward the human. He stood and turned, without another word, leading them out of the ship. The light outside was almost blinding. They stepped into the open world, an alien spaceport, full of shouting, machines, and movement. People stared, 2 alien girls following, a human man. No one stopped them. He took them to a quiet corner and gave them a small bottle of water. Nali drank first, her hands shaking. Zira waited, watching him closely. She was ready to run if needed. "What's your name?" he asked, finally looking at her. "Zira," she said after a pause. "My sister is Nali." "I'm Elias," he replied. "You're safe now." Zira didn't answer. She didn't believe in safety anymore, but for the first time in days, she didn't feel like a number. He took them, but not for Gold City. Beyond the spaceport was loud and alive, filled with smoke, lights, and people rushing in all directions. Elias led the 2 girls through a narrow back alley, away from the open roads and crowded stalls. His pace was steady, but his eyes moved constantly. watching everything. Zero noticed how he never let his back face a corner. He moved like someone who didn't trust the world and maybe, she thought, someone the world shouldn't trust either. Nally stumbled once, her bare feet cut from the rough ground. Elias stopped without a word, reached into his coat, and pulled out small boots. They were worn but clean. He helped Nally put them on, his hands surprisingly gentle. "Where are we going?" Zero asked for the first time. "Someplace quiet," he said. They walked for nearly an hour, until they reached the edge of the city. A long rusted vehicle waited there, an old hover truck with cracked windows and faded paint. Elias helped the girls inside, then got behind the controls. As the truck lifted into the night air, Zero finally let herself breathe. Inside the vehicle, silence settled. Elias drove without speaking. The stars above looked cold. The desert below passed by in streaks of darkness. Nally fell asleep in Zero's lap, but Zero stayed awake, watching him. "Why did you help us?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Finally he said, "Because no one else would." It wasn't the answer she expected, but it was honest. The truck eventually stopped near a broken-down building in the hills. It looked abandoned, but when Elias stepped forward, a hidden panel on the wall lit up. A door opened. Inside was a small room, barely furnished, but clean and warm. There were blankets, food, a fire generator humming in the corner. "This is your place?" Zero asked. "Not exactly," he said, "but it's safe. For now." The girls ate quietly. Canned food, soft bread, and water. It felt like a feast. After they finished, Elias checked a panel on the wall. Signals blinked. Communications, Zero guessed. She didn't know what he was looking at, but he seemed tense. "They'll be looking for you," he finally said. "The traitors?" Zero asked. He shook his head. "Worse." Zero didn't ask more. She already knew too much about people who hunted others. That night, Elias gave them the bed and took the floor. Zero didn't sleep. She sat beside her sister, holding her tightly. She watched the man who had bought them but didn't chain them, didn't hurt them, didn't even ask for thanks. Who was he? In the early morning, a soft beeping sound came. From his bag, Elias stood quickly, pulling out a small device. Zero peeked from the bed. A face appeared on the screen, and alien woman in a military uniform. "They've traced you," she said. "There's a bounty, dead or alive." "Let them come," Elias replied calmly. "This isn't like before," she warned. "They want the girls badly. Then they'll have to go through me." The screen went dark. Elias turned and found Zero staring at him. "Who are you?" she asked again, quietly. He walked to the door and looked outside. The desert wind was picking up. "Someone who lost everything," he said, "and now, maybe, has something left to protect." Suddenly, a shadow moved in the distance. Elias raised a scanner. 3 red dots appeared, fast-moving figures approaching the shelter. "Wake her up," he said to Zero. Now, Zero shook Nally awake. "What's happening?" she whispered. "They found us," Elias said. "We move, now." He handed Zero a small pouch. Inside were food rations and a stun flare. "Stay behind me, no matter what happens." The girls followed him into the dawn light. The wind howled around them. From behind the dune, 3 armed figures appeared, dark armor, red visors, bounty hunters. They spoke in clicks and low tones. Elias said nothing. He stepped forward. One of the bounty hunters aimed a weapon at him. "Hand over the children." Elias didn't blink. He reached into his coats. Loliand pulled out a small silver badge. The symbol on it made the hunters freeze. "You're one of them," the lead hunter said, stepping back. "Not anymore," Elias replied. "But I remember how to kill like one." The hunters hesitated. Then the wind shifted. A second group appeared behind them. These weren't bounty hunters. They were worse. Mercenaries. Cira grabbed Nally's hand and whispered, "Run." Elias answered before she could move. "No," he said. We stand together. He drew his weapon, and the sky exploded in light. The blood on his hands desert roared with fire and dust. Flashes of plasma lit the sky as gunfire cracked across the dunes. Elias moved with a kind of controlled violence Zira had never seen before, not like the market guards who pushed and screamed, but like a shadow that struck before others could blink. He didn't yell. He didn't panic. He didn't even breathe loudly. He simply moved. The first mercenary was already on the ground, weapon shattered, arm broken. The second tried to flank from behind, but Elias ducked low, rolled through the sand, and snapped the rifle from his hands before slamming the man down with terrifying ease. "Stay down," he growled. Cira crouched behind a rock, her arms wrapped tightly around Nolly. She couldn't look away from the fight. She should have been afraid of Elias. Anyone else would be. But somehow, her fear had started to turn into something else. Trust. The last mercenary standing called out, "Who are you?" Elias turned slowly, eyes locked. "I'm the reason they'll stop sending people," he replied. Then the mercenary raised his hand, not to shoot but to activate a beacon. A bright red light blinked fast. Zero knew what that meant. More were coming. Elias didn't flinch. He fired. The beacon shattered midair. Just before the soldier hit the ground, silence fell. The sun was rising now, casting gold across the sand. Smoke curled into the sky. 3 figures stood in the aftermath, 1 man, and 2 alien children still breathing. They returned to the shelter, moving quickly. Elias sealed the doors, activated old defense panels, then sat heavily in the corner, pressing his hand to his side. Blood leaked between his fingers. "You're hurt," Nolly whispered. "Just a scratch," he lied. Zira knew it. WASN, single quotes T. As Elias stitched the wound himself, Zero noticed something fall from his jacket. It was a small photo, worn and faded. She picked it up carefully. In it was a girl around her age, smiling. She had light brown hair and wore a necklace shaped like a star. Zero looked up. "Is this your daughter?" Elias froze. For a long time, he didn't answer. Then, Zero handed it back. "What happened?" Elias stared at the fire. "I was a soldier. Before all this, I followed orders. Even the bad ones. One day, I followed them too far. We raided a village. We thought it was a rebel base. It wasn't." His voice was low, almost distant. "I lost her that day, and I lost myself." Nolly sat beside him and placed her tiny hand over his. "But you saved us," she said softly. Elias looked at her, eyes full of pain and something deeper. "Hope, maybe." "That's not enough," he said. "Maybe it's a start," Zero replied. Just then, the scanner on the wall beeped. A new signal. But this one wasn't a mercenary transmission, it was encrypted. Elias unlocked it. A woman's voice filled the room. "Elias, it's me, Captain Mora. The girls have bounties on their heads from the syndicate. Not just for trade. They're survivors of something much bigger. They're witnesses." Zara's heart skipped. "Taught witnesses? To what?" Elias answered. "Why wasn't I told?" "You weren't supposed to find them," Mora replied. "But now that you have, others will keep coming. They can't be allowed to speak." Elias shut the transmission off. He turned to Zira. "What happened before the traders took you?" he asked gently. Zira hesitated, her eyes lowered. "There was a base," she whispered. "My parents worked there. There was a man. He had a mark on his face. He was doing something bad. People died. My mother hid us in a vent. We saw him. He saw us, too." "The syndicate's secret lab," Elias muttered. Nalai added. "He smiled when the fire started. He liked it." Elias stood, mind racing. "They're not just trying to sell you," he said. "They're trying to erase you." The silence was heavy now. Then Zero said, "You said you lost your daughter. We lost our family too. But maybe we can be something. Not broken, not alone." Elias gave a sad smile. I don't know how to be a father. Just keep doing what you did today, Zero said. That's enough. He looked at her with deep emotion in his eyes. For the first time in years, Elias felt something stir, something warm, something human. Outside, the sky turned gray. In the distance, 3 new ships entered orbit, larger, faster. Military class. They had tracked the beacon. Elias gripped his rifle and looked at the girls. Pack light, he said. We run before nightfall. Where to? Zira asked. He answered without turning. Where they'll never expect us. Back to the fire. Back to the Syndicate's base. Zira's eyes widened. You want to go back? I want to end it, he said. The safe place isn't safe. Phileas guided the hover truck across the jagged hills, under the cover of a stormy sky. Winds howled through the desert canyons, throwing dust against the windows. In the back seat, Zira held Nolly close, wrapping her own jacket around her little sister. Both of them stared silently at the man who had become their only shield from a galaxy full of monsters. They didn't speak much, no. One did. Not after the truth came out. Not after Elias told them. They had seen something no child was supposed to see. A secret. A murder. A betrayal. Buried deep inside the Syndicate's labs. Something so dark, they had sent entire squads to erase it. And now, there was no hiding but. Elias had a plan, and it started with an old contact. They arrived by nightfall at the edge of a canyon, where sharp cliffs rose from the sand like stone teeth. There, hidden beneath rock and brush, was a battered outpost built into the cliffside. No lights, no movement. It looked abandoned, but Elias knew better. He knocked on the metal panel twice, paused, then 3 times. A red light scanned his face. After a moment, a voice came through the static. You look worse than I remember. You always say that, Elias replied. The door opened. Inside stood a tall alien woman, with dark gray skin and glowing blue eyes. Her name was Vela, a former intelligence officer who had once worked with Elias in secret wars. She wore no weapons, but her presence was sharp, and her eyes quickly scanned the girls behind him. They're the ones, she asked. Elias nodded. They saw the facility, the one you told me about. Vela's face changed. She stepped aside. Get in now. The outpost was small, with narrow halls and old tech humming along the walls. Zira clutched Nolly's hand tightly. They didn't trust anyone, but Vela didn't try to touch them or smile at them. She simply pointed them to a room with 2 beds, a heater, and clean water. Rest here, she said. You're safe. But Zira had learned long ago that the word safe often came before something terrible. Hours later, Elias and Vela sat at a metal table deep in the command room. They've sent code black hunters, she said. Not just bounty men. Ghost units? Ex-syndicate. No rules. No backup. No fear. How many? Elias asked. Vela sighed. 3 teams, at least. And if they know you're moving toward the old base, they'll try to cut you off. Then, we go quiet. Underground routes. Collapsed 2 years ago. A ship then. Vela raised an eyebrow. You still remember how to fly. I remember how to crash with style. Meanwhile, in the small room, Nolly slept peacefully. Zero didn't. She COULDN. Single quotes too. Her mind was racing. The memories were coming back now. The fire, the scream, the man, with the scar across his nose, her mother pulling her into the vent. Don't make a sound, her mother had said. Don't even breathe. But she had seen him. He had smiled while everything burned, and now, he was looking for them. Midnight, at sudden bang rocked the outpost, alarms blared, red lights flashed. Zira jumped from the bed and grabbed Nolly. Elias burst through the door seconds later, rifle ready. They found us, he said. Vela's trying to seal the east wall. Come with me. They raced down a metal tunnel. The sound of plasma drills echoed behind them. The enemy wasn't wasting time. They were cutting through. As they turned the corner, Zero stopped. A man stood there, tall, scarred. The man from the fire. Her legs froze. Her breath stopped. Nolly, Whimper, Ed, Elias stepped in front of them instantly, shielding them with his body. The scarred man smirked. "So it's true," he said. "The ghost soldier has a heart now." Elias didn't speak, didn't blink. They saw something they shouldn't. The man said, "We can end this easy. Give them to me." Elias moved his hand to his side. "You always were predictable." The scarred man sighed, and then it began. Gunfire filled the hall. Smoke burst through the air. Elias grabbed the girls and pushed them into a side tunnel while firing blindly. Behind him, Vila's voice crackled through the "I've got a ship prepped. Hangar 2, move." The trio ran through broken hallways as explosions shook the outpost. Walls caved. Wires sparked. They reached the hangar. A small shuttle waited, its engines glowing faintly. "Get in," Vila yelled from the pilot's seat. Elias jumped in, followed by the girls. The door slammed shut. Outside the blast door, the scarred man appeared again, this time with a weapon pointed at them. But Zero didn't look away, neither did Elias. He pressed the launch button, and the ship burst through the roof. As they rose into the sky, Zero whispered, "That was him, the one who burned our home." Ilias's voice was steady. "Then that's where we go next." The storm from the Scythe shuttle burst through the clouds like a bullet ripping across the sky, its hull vibrating from the stress of sudden lift. The cold blackness of space opened before them, vast, endless, silent, but inside the cockpit, chaos still echoed in Ilias's mind. Vila flew the ship with expert precision, her hands steady on the controls, her eyes scanning the nav screen. Zira sat in the back with her arms around Nolly, trying to calm her breathing. She couldn't stop thinking about the man with the scar there, one from her nightmares. Now she had seen him again. He was real. He remembered her, and worst of all, he wasn't afraid. Elias stood beside Vela, watching the tracking monitors. 3 red dots followed them, tight and fast. "Interceptors," Vela muttered. "Not syndicate. Not pirates, either. They're clean. Military trained. Off book." Elias cursed under his breath. "They're not trying to shoot us down. They're pushing us." Vila's jaw clenched. "They want us to land somewhere specific." "Where?" Elias asked. The ship shuddered. Vila looked at the screen. "They're guiding us toward the ruins." Elias froze. Zira's voice came from behind him. "The place, ... where it all started." He turned around. "Yes." Nolly looked up, whispering, "Why are we going back?" Elias knelt down beside them. "Because we need to end this. And because the truth is still buried there." The girls said nothing, but neither of them pulled away. They entered orbit over a scarred world, its surface marked by craters and burned forests. Once, this planet had been beautiful. Now, it was a graveyard. And somewhere in that graveyard was the place where Zira and Nolly's story had nearly ended, and where their new one had begun. Vela piloted low and quiet, weaving through the storm clouds that brewed over the southern mountain range. Lightning cracked the sky. Winds howled. A storm was coming, and so were they. They landed in a broken valley, hidden between jagged rocks. The shuttle hissed as its ramp lowered. The smell of burned soil filled the air. Ash crunched beneath their boots. Elias stepped out first, scanning the horizon with a scope. "The facility is 10 clicks east, mostly underground, heavily collapsed." "And the man?" Zero asked. "He'll be there," Elias said. "He's the kind that finishes what he starts." Vela handed them a field pack with basic supplies: water, heat tablets, flares, and a short-range jammer. "This will hide you," she said. "For a little while." "What about you?" Elias asked. "I'll circle above." "You'll need extraction once this gets ugly." He nodded. It will. The journey through the ashlands was hard. The air was dry and bitter. The wind carried echoes of machines, of voices long gone. Nolly walked between Elias and Zira, quiet, but alert. She wasn't a baby anymore. None of them were what they used to be. They passed wreckage, twisted metal, broken walls, shattered glass domes, and then they found the door, half buried under rubble and stone. The entrance to the old syndicate facility sat like a mouth to a monster's cave. The security panel was cracked, but Elias knelt beside it and began rewiring. "This was where we lived," Zero whispered. "Our parents worked here," Nolly added softly, "before they came." The door groaned open. A dark tunnel awaited. Inside, the air was cold and still. Emergency lights flickered dimly along the walls. As they moved deeper, the past came alive. Rooms burned out, LAB tables overturned, data pads still covered in dust, and blood stains. So many of them. "This was never a research site," Elias muttered. "This was a test zone." Zira touched a broken chair. "They made weapons here. Living weapons. We heard them scream at night." Nolly stopped near a sealed door. Her voice was barely audible. "Our parents tried to stop them." Suddenly, a sound echoed down the corridor. Footsteps. Elias raised his rifle and motioned them behind cover. The lights went dark. Red beams moved along the walls. Someone was already inside. A voice crackled from a nearby speaker, deep, slow, mocking. "Welcome home, little witnesses." Zira's heart pounded. It was him, the scarred man. "You brought the ghost soldier with you. Good. I've always wanted a rematch. Come out," Elias shouted. "Let's finish this." The speaker hissed again. "Oh, we will, but not yet. First, let them see what you really are." Suddenly, a hidden panel opened in the wall, revealing a recording. Cir. A single quote's eyes widened. It was security footage years old. Elias, wearing black armor, walking through this very hallway, weapons in both hands, bodies falling behind him. "You led the raid," Zira whispered. "You were part of it." Elias stared at the screen, his face hard, broken. "Yes." Nolly backed away. "You killed people," Zira said, shaking. "I didn't know what this place really was," he said. "I followed orders. And when I found out, it was too late." The scarred man laughed through the speakers. "You see, girls, he's not your savior. He's the reason you were orphaned." Tears welled in Zira's eyes. She didn't run, but her heart felt cold again. "Why help us now?" she asked. Elias stepped forward, eyes locked on hers. "Because I'm done following monsters, and because this time I'm not leaving anyone behind." A door slammed shut behind them. Locks hissed. The room went black, and then the storm above began to roar, rattling the foundations of the lab. They weren't alone anymore. What they meant to him, walls vibrated with every boom above. Deep underground, where dust clung to cold metal and memories refused to die, Elias stood motionless, his shadow cast long and broken by the flickering emergency lights. Zero and Nolly stood at opposite corners of the sealed room, silent, unsure. Their eyes were not on the room. They were on him, on the man they had trusted, and the man who had helped destroy their home. "Say something," Zero whispered, her voice shaking. Elias didn't turn. He watched the old security footage loop once more, his past self, armor-clad, merciless, marching down the same hallway where they now stood. "I didn't know," he said at last. "I didn't know there were families, that this place held more than weapons. They told us it was a rogue lab, a threat." He looked at Zira, his voice raw. "I believed them, and that day, I followed orders. I followed orders while your world burned." Nolly held Zira's hand tightly, her small voice rising in the silence. "But you saved us." Elias knelt down, slowly unarmed, exposed. "Not enough," he said. "I didn't save your parents. I didn't stop the fire. I lived with the guilt, buried it beneath 100 missions. I told myself I was a good man doing hard things. But you too tore that lie apart. He looked at them, eyes wet. And for the first time in years, I want to be someone better. For you. The lights flickered out completely. A new voice rose over the intercom. Cold.com. Cruel, touching, said the scarred man. Very touching. But you're not walking out of here. A low hiss echoed as gas began to leak from vents. Run, Elias shouted. But the doors were sealed. He ripped open a floor panel and motioned them in. Old access tunnel, he said. Go. Zira hesitated. What about you? I'll slow him down. Go. Nolly didn't move. She looked up at Elias with tears in her eyes. You're our family now. He froze. Those 4 words. He had spent his life in war zones behind enemy lines, under fire. He had medals, scars, a reputation, but never not once had he heard anything that cut deeper. Elias handed her a small tracker. You followed the green light. It'll lead you to Vela. She'll take care of you. But Zero started. No arguments, he said. If I don't come back, live like they wanted you to. Live free. Nolly kissed his cheek, trembling. Zero grabbed his arm one last time. You're not the man who destroyed our home, she whispered. You're the one who gave us a new one. And then they disappeared into the tunnel. Elias sealed the hatch. Just as the main doors burst open, the scarred man entered, flanked by 2 armored shadows. His expression was smug, confident. Alone again, soldier. Elias stood tall. You should have stayed in the fire. The scarred man chuckled. Funny. That's where I found purpose. You found madness. Same thing, he smirked. They circled each other like wolves. You betrayed everything, the scarred man hissed. The mission, the silence, the order. No, Elias replied. I betrayed you. And then the guns roared. Deep in the tunnels, Zira and Nolly ran through shadows. Explosions rocked the ceiling above. The tracker blinked faster, closer. The light at the end of the corridor glowed bright, and just beyond it, Vela waited beside. A second extraction ship. The moment they stepped outside, Vela pulled them into the craft. Where's Elias? She asked. He stayed, Zero said, her voice cracking. To stop him. Vela didn't hesitate. She activated the engines. Above them, lightning ripped the sky. Inside the lab, fire licked the walls. Elias was bleeding, his breath heavy, but the scarred man was worse, half-burned, limping, furious. They'll never be safe. The man hissed. No, Elias said, dragging himself closer. But they'll be free. And with that, he triggered the core charge he had planted. As the ceiling collapsed and flames consumed everything, Elias closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Not for the blood he had spilled, but for the future he had saved. Hours later, Vela's ship soared through the stars. Zira stared out the window in silence. Nally leaned against her shoulder. He's gone, isn't he? She asked. Zira nodded. But he chose it. Vela turned from the controls. He sent a message. It uploaded before the blast. She handed Zira the device. The screen flickered and Elias's face appeared. His voice was soft, but steady. If you're seeing this, then I did what had to be done. No more hiding. No more running. The galaxy will still be cruel, but now you have each other. And maybe, if you're brave enough, you can make it better for more than just yourselves. Protect each other. Live boldly. And never forget, didn't save you. You saved me. The screen went dark, and for the first time since the cage, Zira smiled. A new home. A new Namath. Stars above were different now. Not because they had changed, but because she had. Zero stood at the edge of a green cliff, wind brushing through her long dark hair. Behind her stretched miles of untouched land, forests that whispered freedom, mountains that hummed peace. She could hear the sound of a nearby river, smell the clean air, feel the weight of a future that no longer ran from fire, but toward something brighter. Beside her, Nolly laughed softly as she chased fluttering blue insects. Her scars were still there, visible and invisible, but her smile was real now, unafraid, alive. It'd been 6 months since the blast, 6 months since Elias had stayed behind to destroy the past, so the girls could walk into a future. They hadn't just run after that, they had risen. Vela had done more than save them. She had trained them, sheltered them, connected them to those who still believed in justice. A secret resistance, quietly watching the cracks in the Syndicate's grip. They didn't want soldiers. They wanted survivors who knew what pain looked like, and had decided to fight it. Zira and Nolly weren't just survivors anymore, they were becoming something more. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the hills, a small crowd gathered in the village square. Humans and aliens stood side by side, farmers, teachers, pilots, medics. At the center of it all stood Zira, now 14, with steady eyes and a silent fire in her chest. Vela stepped forward with a small metal box in her hand. "We used to have a tradition," she said, "when someone chose to stop running and start rebuilding. They took a name of their own choosing. Not a slave number, not a registry ID, a name that meant something. A name to carry into the stars." She looked at Zira. "Do you want that, right?" Zira nodded. "Yes." Vela opened the box and revealed a small data chip. Engraved in gold. Zira stepped forward and placed her hand on the scanner. "State your chosen name," Vela said. The crowd fell silent. Zira inhaled. "Zira, Elias." A murmur moved through the people, then a hush, then warmth. Vela smiled. "Accepted." Nolly ran up beside her. "Can I too?" Vela chuckled. "You sure?" Nolly puffed her chest with playful pride. "Nolly Elias." The crowd laughed, clapped, cheered, but to Zira, it wasn't just names, it was legacy. That night, as stars blanketed the sky, Zira sat quietly by the fire. Vela joined her, offering a cup of hot root tea. "You miss him," Vela said gently. Zira nodded. "Every day, but you're not alone, I know." Vela reached into her coat and pulled out a device, a secure comm chip. Someone intercepted. A transmission, encrypted, old code, from a dead frequency. But it's his voice. Zira's hands trembled as she took it. The playback buzzed for a moment, then clicked. Elias' single quotes echoed softly. "If this signal reaches you, it means I did what I had to do. I don't regret it. But maybe, just maybe, I survived. Maybe someone found me, patched me up. Maybe I'm on a world without a name, healing, remembering. If that's true, then remember this. You are not my second chance. You are the reason I changed. You are my daughters. Not by blood but by choice. And if I ever find my way back, I'll be looking for the name you chose. Zira Elias. I hope you wear it like armor." The message ended. Zira stared at the fire for a long time. Was it real? Was he alive? She didn't know, but hope had returned. Years later, a young woman with dark hair and strong eyes stepped into a vast chamber of the Interstellar Council. Behind her walked Nolly, now taller, confident, brave. They wore robes of peace but carried truth. Like weapons. People whispered as they passed. "Those are the sisters from the fire. They stood against the Syndicate. They carried the ghost soldier's name." Zira took her seat. She didn't flinch under their gaze. "I'm not here to beg," she said calmly. "I'm here to testify, to tell the story of what they did and what we became, despite them." A human diplomat leaned forward. "And who do you represent?" Zira smiled. "Those who were left behind. Those who were called worthless. Those who were caged, and those who chose to rise anyway." She paused, then said, loud and clear, "My name is Zira Elias. I represent hope."